everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace. This week's show is on being woke and all that it means. We've got a bunch of familiar faces and friends on the show tonight. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And I have switched back to StreamYard. So if you're on Facebook, register with them so we can see your name when you comment or have a question. Please keep all comments and questions related to the show. And remember, this is a safe space. I want to give a shout out to our top sponsors. We're all having technical difficulties tonight. Ruth, Kirsten, Michelle, Ray, and Heidi, you all rock and enable the show to go on. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting it. You can go to sherrypalace.com and use the support tab. There's literally dozens of ways to show me and the show support. Thank you in advance for supporting my work. But more importantly, thanks for being here and welcoming us into your home. I appreciate you. Thank you in advance for your support and taking a moment to share love and get educated. Okay, on with the show. Let's meet our guests. Cami Beck is a 45-year-old Black woman who loves history, good food, and wine. Traveling, interesting conversation, but she doesn't like conspiracy theories. Welcome, Cami.
Hi.
Good to have you back.
Yay!
Next, we have Bill Prickett. Bill grew up in the Bible Belt. He served nearly 20 years in the ministry, then built a successful career in public relations and communications. He's written 5 novels about the influence of conservative religion in Southern culture and the challenges of living authentically. It's my platform and I can't even say it. Hello, Bill. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks, Dr. Sherry.
Tongue twisters, technology, all that good stuff.
Authentically.
Yeah, authentically. And last but definitely not least, we have Curtis B. Scruggs back. He is a decorated Army veteran and a single father. He is currently the CEO of East Cleveland Growth Association. Curtis has 2 bachelor's degrees in paralegal education and public administration and 2 master's degrees, an MBA and a master's in finance. He's been involved in community relations since 2006 when he left the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department. Welcome, Curtis. County Sheriff's Department. I can hear me. Let me go ahead. Say hello. Let me go ahead.
Hello.
Okay, Curtis is having a little bit of background, so we're going to just go ahead and start and work it out while we can. Okay, I wanted to do a little bit because, Curtis, can you mute me? Start and work it out. Okay. I wanted to have this show because I looked into what woke was a couple months ago when it really started coming out into the press and politicians using it. And I was absolutely amazed at the degradation of the term. I was also a little bit alarmed because any politician saying don't be woke is literally asking you to be asleep and not know what they're doing. So let's go ahead and start with what exactly woke is and where it started. Cami, you're up top, so I'm going to start with you.
Well, okay, as for the word woke, now I heard this term like a long time ago when I was in high school. So that's like in 1990s or something like that. But it was like more of like getting little known facts of stuff that we did not know or that was not taught in our history class. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't know with Black history. So we're kind of like, that's what my term woke is, of like knowledge and getting facts and a little bit of knowledge of educational stuff that we did not even know, or that was not even taught in the public school. Now
Yeah.
it's let's see, it's kind of weird. They just somehow just made it a new word, like a different definition.
And
From
scary.
Yes. And then we got woke, and then we also got, counselor culture. So it's kind of like those two can mesh or like put together, but really it's not. No, it's like when people want to call out or calling out your like racist behavior or anything like that, they're gonna say, you hear these politicians like being woke or something like that. You hear a lot about it, especially they started using the term so much in England when Meghan married Harry, and they were calling out racism and stuff like that. And then how like the British people were telling like they were like so woke and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, so y'all just now finding out that y'all kind of racist over there anyway. But and it's really scary because they just like turn a whole new word into something kind of like, it's just weird,
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute Curtis and hope that I don't hear myself because that's just
I'm going to go ahead and unmute Curtis and hope that I don't hear myself because that's just scary.
Okay, let me mute him again. Woke actually started in the Bill, you and I were talking backstage, the early last century in the 1900s as a way to watch your back, right?
Yeah, it was. It came out of the African American community years ago. I think it was originally part of American community blues songs ago, and it had to do with being alert of what's going on around you, being aware, and then it began to transition. And then earlier, I think in the about early 2012, 2013, then it began to be connected with Black Lives Matter, and in some of the marches, the hashtags were BLM and Stay Woke, and so it was then a call to the community to be aware of what's going on around you, be aware of injustice, be aware of what the police are doing. And so it has its origin. I mean, as a writer, the word itself, the basic word is, woke is the past tense of wake. And so, I can use an illustration as an old man. The neighbor's loud music woke me up. So, that's the historic grammatical meaning of the word, but it takes on a metaphorical meaning as Black Lives Matter began to become prominent. Then the word did that. And then, of course, as Cami was saying, people took it and turned it and turn it against as using it as an insult. So it means anybody who is, like another word we used to hear a lot, politically correct.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You remember when that was the term,
So just for the record, I'm wearing my shirt that says, "Do not be a dick." In emojis. And I think that in itself is woke. And anyone who is maligning the woke movement is just being an asshole. Now I'm going to give myself like 3 or 4 seconds of silence so Curtis can jump in and I don't hear myself. You ready, Curtis? And I don't hear myself. You ready, Curtis? Go for it.
I think for us, woke started back in the 1960s with Malcolm X and his call for black people to wake up to the circumstances around them, to the racism and the bias especially in the criminal justice system. He talked about waking up to our history. We know for a fact that George Washington never chopped down a cherry. Said we Washington's teeth from the teeth of slaves. We know now that Thomas did not have a love affair with a 14-year-old slave who was raped. Those are the things that, when we talk about being woke, those are the types of things that we talk about. We talk about the whitewashing of history that's taught in our schools. We're not taught about how President Andrew Jackson and the genocide of the indigenous people. We're not talked about the Trail of Tears, where the Cherokee were forced to march from Georgia, their native lands in northern Georgia and Florida, Oklahoma, to the reservations. We aren't taught about that when the Cherokee discovered oil on those reservations in Oklahoma, then they were thrown. How then they were thrown off of those reservations. Those are the that woke means to us. Now the conservative movement has taken the term woke and made it a pejorative instead of it really means to us. They've appropriated it, basically.
Well, I think also,
yeah, go woke or go broke is actually trending on Twitter today as a top hashtag. And all over Twitter, they're talking about how the CEO of Disney was replaced because the former, as of yesterday, was too woke. Disney has always been, I use always and then stop myself, LGBTQ friendly, right?
Right.
They weren't necessarily friendly towards women, but from what I understand, they've always been LGBTQ friendly. So to go and say now that Disney went broke is a joke, for one, and for two, that it was because they went woke. Again, being woke is, there's a meme going around that says, I say that I'm woke because saying that I'm empathetic, compassionate, and loving towards my neighbor is just too hard for some people. And I just don't get the fear. I just don't get the demonization of the term unless we go back to there's a huge sect in our society that just loves being an asshole.
yes. And I think from what Curtis was saying, that the conservatives have co-opted the word. They've bastardized the word. But it is also on the left side. I think that I'm just an old cis white guy, so I don't speak for everybody. But I see that woke has also become appropriated by the progressives. To be woke means that you see things. You're going against some of the say the patriarchy that's in there, or you're seeking equality and justice. So it's broader. But as I was telling you, Dr. Sherry, before the show, it's not a word that I tend to use because I don't want to be seen as appropriating a word that is not part of my community, that was not part of my community. But if somebody calls me woke, I know that they're insulting me, and so I will own it. Yes, I am woke. I believe in equality. I believe in justice. I believe in fairness. So it's a fine line for me with the word.
Cammie, what do you think about that appropriating comment? That kind of, we were talking backstage when he said that, and I was like, I never thought of, appropriating this word. Would you ever consider a white person using it in a positive way, not in a derogatory way, as appropriation?
That's interesting. Because actually, yeah. Especially
Wow. Okay.
especially the younger generation, like the millennials, Generation Z. They are using it and appropriating that word. Um, I'm Generation X. We hardly use that word. um, we, I mean, like I said, the first time I heard that word was in like in the 1990s, and that's because um, there was a lot of black fashion designers were coming out, and there was like the rap culture was getting up and up and about. Also, we had what else? Public Enemy was coming out with Fight the Power, and Spike Lee was coming out with his movies. So that's how we, got them, in the 90s, like in my generation, what woke is. Of being being aware, but also being aware of what's going on in our black culture. That was woke was when we started, using the word and what's going on in our community.
Yeah, when I started looking into it, because DeSantis was using it, it was all over Florida. It said that, especially during the civil rights time, it was a way to say "watch your back." And again, I look at saying "stay woke" or "watch your back." Anyone saying to not do that is odd. For someone to say, don't watch your back, go to sleep, especially in a political arena where a politician is saying that, that scares the fuck out of me. Because that they are in power. There is a handful of people, if any, that I would trust with my life like that. And I'm a white woman. So, to say to people of color, to say to the marginalized, don't worry about it, don't mind us, don't pay attention. I just don't get how someone could look at that and be like, okay, yeah, well, you go ahead. I'll just go to sleep now.
I think it's a wonderful word. I think
Totally.
it's a very vivid image. I mean, the context of it, of being woke as it's used in contemporary culture, not as it was originally intended. But
Right.
words change. I mean, words change, and so to fight against the machine of word changing is exhausting. And I've just chosen never to do that. And so, but I was reading an article on woke by a Black writer who who felt that it was cultural appropriation, that using woke the way it's used today is not woke, is what they said. So that's why I'm just cautious about it. I'm not saying people should not use the word.
No, I appreciate that.
I'm just simply saying that if woke is what it's used today, it's about being sensitive to others. So I'm going to be sensitive.
Right.
I'm going to be
There you
sensitive
go.
about how I use that word, when I use that word. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama in the 60s. I was there for all the civil rights things that happened. I remember the bombing of the Baptist church. I remember the riots in downtown. I was young. But my freshman year in high school was the first year that we went to school with Black students. They were bussed in. So I was living in it, and I watched the changes in people. One of the teachers at our high school quit rather than teach Black students. So I understand from living that, how things change. So I just like to be sensitive about it. And I didn't want to come across as, some white savior saying, don't use that word. I'm simply saying that I had heard that. And so I'm always sensitive about it. Just like I was at church one day and I went up to a table and I said, hi guys, how's it going? And later on, one of my dear friends who's a trans woman pulled me aside and says, I'm not a guy.
Oh God, I hate that. I use guys for everything. I use
do
guys for my
too. I do
dogs.
too. But
And yeah, I'm
from that point
stopping
on,
myself now.
I said,
Yeah.
okay, Bill, be aware. And so again, I'm an old white guy, so it's a learning curve. And it's a learning curve. When pronouns became
Yes.
a concern for people, then, and as an English major and a writer, pronouns, that was a challenge for me. But I do it. I do it because I want to be sensitive. I love words, but I love people more. So I want to be aware of how it impacts somebody.
Yeah, I'm always, like I said, I even call my dogs guys. Come on, guys. So that's been
Yes.
something I've been working on because yeah, it's not it implies a masculinity,
Yes.
and until that word changes, it can be quite offensive. Curtis?
It can be quite. Curtis?
I think again, piggybacking on what Bill said, I think the word is being simply because of its appropriation. It's being, when we had our discussion about CRT, I think people are taking a bunch of grievances, stirring them up and pouring them in the word woke. Woke is a word that encompasses a lot of people, and people are taking their grievances. They want to ban books. We all read Tom Sawyer in high school, so now Tom Sawyer is all of a sudden a woke book because they use the word nigger in Tom Sawyer. Well, it's been that way ever since the book was written.
Yeah.
I mean, and heaven forbid, like I said, I believe that, as I said, excuse me, woke is it's they've taken a mass of different things and poured them into woke, to make themselves feel better.
Well, and I'm because hold on. There we go. I want to. Bill used the word sensitive, and one of the comments was great word sensitive. And that also was, as Oprah would say, an aha moment, because you get these machismo alpha male guys out there assaulting woke, and if they view it as sensitive, then that is sissy, then that is feminizing it. And when you get the misogyny involved with the masochism and the all of the church's power and all of that, I mean, the war against the LGBTQ community from the church is because it's an abomination. But they don't care about the people who are involved. So to say that, that was my point. Sorry. The abomination is because it was laying like a woman. Do not be like a woman and lay under a man. So if we take the word woke and apply it to sensitive, then they can totally change it into sissy. And that's what's happening, right? Curtis,
Yeah.
I'm going to unmute you. Okay.
Curtis, I'm gonna unmute you.
Yeah. Well, what I think is happening is yeah. I don't think people are feminizing the word woke, sanizing it. To, as again, like I said, to they've taken there's a grievance that has been taken in and poured into the word woke. Ron DeSantis uses it just every other word out of his mouth is woke. So if that's constantly what you're hearing. And his whole free state of Florida philosophy, we're because they're woke. we're not going to say gay because, that's woke culture. It's just a whole mishmash of things that again it's grievance.
And they've been
So it's just
successful.
Has been
racism. It's
weaponized word, and that's
Right.
woke.
And they've been
So
successful.
it's just racism, is what you're saying.
It's racism. Absolutely, it's racism. Absolutely, it's racism. Because woke is not anything, and that's just when we're as a pejorative, it's something to do with black people. It has to do with the George Floyd murder. It has to do with book banning. So what we do is we take our prejudices. We actually had, and I know all of you heard the political ads during the election season. Oh, progressives want to take our children and turn them all into, they want to take boys and turn them into girls, and they want to take girls and turn them into boys. And we all heard that ad, which I found just absolutely disgusting, because that's, nobody wants to take a boy and turn him into a girl, or take a girl and turn her into a boy. And there is no transgender person at all that changed sexes so that sports. Nobody's done that. As a matter of fact, we had a gold medal decathlete.
It's all fear.
Yeah, we had an Olympic gold medal decathlete. So where does this stuff come from?
The hoods. Under the white hoods.
Yes, I think the right has been successful in demonizing the word. As I mentioned, the progressives use it to talk about being aware of injustice and lack of fairness and racism and those kinds of things. And I think that's a perfectly acceptable concept, because it's again, as I said, it's a beautiful metaphor. I was asleep, but now I'm awake. My eyes were closed, but now I can see. But I think that the right has done such an incredible job of taking the word and twisting it, like cancel culture. That's a hard word to say. Cancel culture.
Or
not as high as authentically.
Right. Or like the right, just like when with the George Floyd and the marches and stuff, and somebody said defund the police, and boy, they just took and ran with it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, we're not going to take away all the money. We just want part of the money. So like, kind of like, we want to allocate some of the money from the police budget, instead of like taking it all away.
See, but this is a perfect example of why they want us asleep, because they claimed that the left wanted to defund the police, but the right actually voted against funding.
Yes.
So if we're asleep, then we don't know that they're doing that. Then we know that that we're supposed to take everything they say at face value and believe everything that they say, because they've got God on their side, or so they claim, and then just completely be blinded to what they're actually doing. I mean, for any politician to get up and to say, don't be nice, don't be kind, don't honor your neighbor, shouldn't be in politics. They're leading us to division.
Well, I know that, I've worked in politics. I worked in a presidential campaign. I've been a speechwriter, and worked in public relations and communications. And one of the key concepts that we talk about is controlling the narrative. When I've worked for nonprofits, and when there's any kind of a problem or a new initiative, we want to say it first and say it fast so that we are on top of it. Especially in crisis communication. But I've said for years that the right are the best at controlling the narratives. I wish Democrats and the left were better at it, because they control the narrative. They get to define woke when woke has been around for decades. They get to define,
century.
yeah, all these terms, and I listen to, I interact with people who are right leaning, and it's like they have some kind of master list that goes out with all the talking points, because they'll say the same. I'll hear a politician say something, and then I'm talking to somebody on Facebook, and they use the exact same thing, and I'm thinking,
Fox
well,
News.
everybody's got their talking points lined up,
Yeah.
and they are masters at controlling the narratives. I wish we were better at it.
Well, because they have mastered sound bites.
Yes.
And the Democrats want to explain everything, and it's not that concise. And while that's true, and most of the sound bites are false, it's what helps build the narrative and keep it going. I mean, the fact that people still think that they are fiscally responsible is just mind blowing to me, because they're not.
Or family, that they're the
right?
Party of the family.
Right. Okay, Curtis is itching to jump in.
Curtis is itching to jump in. And Bill, you're 1,000% right. It's easily repeatable, easily digestible sound bites. You don't really have to think about them. You just repeat them. You just continually repeat the sound bite. Democrats and people on the left want you to understand things. The right doesn't care whether you understand it or not, as long as he funds the police, as Cam gave an example. Why do we want to defund the police? Because when there's a call of a mental health emergency, why do we send people with badges and guns?
Yeah, that just kills me.
Wouldn't it be better if we had a cadre of mental health professionals that we could send to a mental health emergency, and then if those people determined that the police were needed, then they could call the police? But no, we want the police to be everything. We want to put all of our, we want our society to be based on police. And again, like I said, easily repeatable, by, and if you ask a person, what woke is, and that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation. If you ask the average person what is woke, what does that mean, they wouldn't be able to tell you. If you ask we go back to the same. If you ask the average Floridian,
I'm going to go ahead and stop you there, Curtis, because I want to put that challenge out to the audience.
Audience, tell me, what does woke mean to you? In the comments,
Audience,
Facebook, Twitter,
yes.
YouTube, I want to hear them all. What does woke mean to you? Curtis, back to you.
In the YouTube, I want to hear woke mean.
Curtis.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did that, because we're gonna get a different. I'm done.
Okay, the first one is, by the way, hey Joel, good to see you. The first one, the time getting out of bed. First coffee is. I don't know if that's Joel, but I can see him doing that. Cami, what next to you?
First coffee.
I mean, that was too cute, because I don't like coffee anyway. But as for woke, and I'm still like at 12 o'clock, I'm still trying to wake up the next day. But I mean, I don't. It's woke has so many definitions. There's just not one definition. Because mean woke is mean like knowledge of something that you did not know, and you just now finding out, being aware of, certain things, like We didn't know about the Oklahoma Black, the bombing of Black Wall Street in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, we did not know. I mean, I remember with my grandparents, they started telling me little stories of histories that are, and that you can't find in history books, but there was like hidden in like for U.S. history that but to me it's not a negative word. It just means being aware of what's going on and what's going on in real time and what's going on, either from politically or from human society. I mean, that's
Okay,
what.
so you just said something that made me connect two dots. This is the same thing as saying the educated, right?
Right, exactly. So that's
I
why.
mean, I always get that. Oh, she's a PhD. Oh, she, like,
But
okay, you hate me because I'm educated. That
right,
again, that's not
right,
a bad thing.
exactly, and a
It makes
lot
people
of
feel insecure, but
right
oh,
because
I'm getting the point. Curtis wants to say an amen. Hold on.
um a lot of right wing, your conservatives are going to say, because you're saying all this stuff that you're woke, that you're educated. I'm like, well, I don't want to be uneducated. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
I mean,
Well,
it's not
we
like
we just had an administration that valued the uneducated. I mean, and they didn't hide it. He said it out loud. So
that's because those educated people are giving him money. I mean, who knew that grifting is going to be in the next career? Okay.
Yeah.
and I think it's education, but it's not just that we went to college or we have a degree. It is a mindset to continue learning.
Right.
Because I have my degree years and years ago. It's carved into stone because we didn't have paper back then. But I mean, and so there was a lot to learn after that because I had to completely deconstruct my fundamentalist background. I had to unlearn what I had learned in Southern culture. And so it is, I think, wokeness is being open to learning, being open to seeing things differently, seeing another person's perspective. I mean, I would have never thought saying, "Hey guys," could be offensive to anybody, but it was. And so I want to be aware of that. I want to be aware of words that I say that could be offensive to women or uh, to African Americans. I want to be aware of it, and my position these days is, if it's offensive to somebody, it's not up to me to explain why it shouldn't be.
All right.
If somebody tells me, well, that's a bit racist, I can't say no, it's not. I'll say, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I did that. That's
Well, I think, if anything, that we should take up a mission to not let them steal this, because the Nazis stole the swastika, and the swastika was a symbol of peace and love for more than 5,000 years. So, and now a swastika, it means the pure and utter evil. So I think that, if anything, we should be woke, and not let them steal this term, and not let them say close your eyes, and not let them demonize caring for your neighbor.
the LGBTQ community did it. I grew up being called queer, and it wasn't a good thing.
No, I still don't want to say it.
It's still hard for me. I will
Yeah.
admit it. As people started, they said, we're reclaiming this word. I
Yeah.
was going, well, okay, you do that, but it's very hard for me to hear that. I'm getting better. I've actually used the term a couple of times and written about it. I posted something on Facebook today, and I used the word in talking about the shooting this week. But the community decided we're going to reclaim that word. So it can be done. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, they did. The black people did it with the N word. Women have done it with bitch. So, I mean,
And those are not words. Those are not words I would ever use, because I'm white and male.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still don't use that word. And I think basically everybody should stop using that word. It should never be in anybody's vocabulary, period.
Agreed.
The C word is another one. I have friends of mine, female friends of mine, who will call each other the C word, and I cringe every time I hear that word.
Okay, so let's talk about that word with being woke. I used to feel the exact same way until I saw the vagina monologues. And there is a huge skit in there. It's a whole segment about the C word. And did she just sass Sherry? No, no one sassed me. Let me put that up there.
We're too afraid of Sherry.
Yeah, don't you be afraid of me. But yeah, I mean, once I saw the vagina monologues and they did a whole thing on the C word, all of a sudden I could own it and be like, okay, there's power in that. Again, education changed everything for me. Queer is the same way. That was a very derogative term when I was growing up. Probably equivalent to the N-word. Now they embrace it. I'm still struggling with it, but I honor them to say, okay, if it's okay for, I don't know if I've ever feel that way with other words. But when someone from the LGBTQ community says, Curtis just unmiked. But again, education made it so that that word, the C word, didn't bother me anymore, and I could own it. Go for it, Curtis.
Okay, I think we still need to take it back to the woke. I still take it back to the historical context, because there's a lot of Black history that people just aren't taught about. The bloody summer of 1919. What people aren't, but we talk about the Nat Turner slave revolt. What we aren't taught is between 1813 and 1863, there were 2 documented slave revolts in America. These are the things that we aren't taught. What we aren't taught is the first Black man to win a Nobel Peace Prize was Dr. Ralph Johnson Bunche. And what he won the Nobel Peace Prize for was partitioning the the Jews from World War II could go to Palestine, which is what it was called then. These are the things that our children aren't taught, that they should be taught. And why aren't they taught these things? I was an adult before I learned these things. A lot of these things I didn't learn in history class.
Oh no.
So, our whole curriculum, people don't know how our government, because we no longer teach civics. We've taken civics and history and geography and wrapped it up into a package. We did that in the 1960s, which is wrong, because people now don't actually know how our government works because there's no civics classes. People don't know 135 members of Congress. People don't know that there are 3 branches of government. We don't know these things, and this for me is what woke being woke is learning, educating yourself so that you are aware of the environment and the culture in which you live.
And some of those people who don't know civics are serving in Congress.
I mean, people don't even know who's representing that district they live in.
Well, and we don't know this history, and our current politicians are damn sure going to try to make sure that we don't know, that our future generations don't know what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
With the banning of the books, with saying, go woke, go broke. They're doing exactly what we were denied. They're continuing to do it. They're changing his story to whoever wins.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the book, A People's History of the United States.
I don't know if anybody's ever.
It's a wonderful, wonderful book that tells so much of the history that we were not taught in high school and college. I recommend it.
Cammy? Or Curtis?
There's also a
Cammy?
book. There's also a book.
Or Curtis?
Yeah, there's also a book by Dr. Du Bois, Black Reconstruction, 1860 to 1880. I recommend that book as well.
Okay.
And all the Generation Z and millennials, there's a cartoon called Schoolhouse Rocks. Like
yes.
only a bill. If you want to know how the government works, yeah, watch that.
I'm only a bill, and I've got a figurine of that from Schoolhouse Rock
Do you really?
Up here on my cabinet here.
Well, I mean, and that's pathetic because we're all admitting that we learned our civics on Saturday morning cartoons when we were kids, but it worked. I can still sing the song to this day. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Schoolhouse Rock. It was absolutely great to learn about those types of things. But I want to take one step back because I don't think that we realize that we're asking people who abhor education and reading and science to get educated. Right? I mean, we're telling people, hey, you should be woke. It's a good thing, like anti-fascists. It still cracks me up that people say that that's a bad thing.
Right.
But we are asking people to educate themselves when they already demonize education as a general rule and generally speaking. Is there any other way that we can show them the light, for lack of a better term, and totally cliche? Tough topics, Cammy. Always discussing tough topics.
I know.
Let me unmute Curtis.
I know.
I think
Curtis.
that and you're right, this is a tough as you said, Sherry, I think we're asking people who abhor education to become educated. That's the first thing for them, is that we're saying to them, you need to get educated. And what they're telling their followers is, don't be educated. It's the old thing that my ignorance trumps, pun intended, your education. And we have a whole
100.
We have a whole network. We have a international news network dedicated to ignorance. Just watch it from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and people used to travel from all over the world to our education system. And now we Americans are sitting there going, we don't know half of our shit. We don't know. We weren't told. They hid it. Anything that, I mean, I kind of have an excuse because I went to a Christian school and our textbooks were the Bible. So I I can say full-heartedly that I was indoctrinated. But in the public schools where you're supposed to have a thorough and real education, they're not, because these Christian rights and the people who are waging the war against woke are actually affecting our children's school books and the things that they would say. DeSantis's woke is not about protecting anybody. It's about demonizing and having children be unsafe. To have a child in second, third, fourth grade who has gay parents or starts to know that they are gay, most people know around 6 is from what I've seen. That's a time when these children need support. If they don't get support, they die. They kill themselves. So we need people to wake up. Wake the fuck up. And if it's not being labeled woke, whatever it is, because people are literally dying because you don't want us to know the truth. My diatribe for the evening.
Well, and I think you were asking about as a what else besides education? I think talking and listening.
Why I'm
People
doing the show.
People who are anti-LGBTQ. When I talk with them, I ask them, "Do you know anybody?" When I hear them spouting these myths and these lies and this misinformation, I ask, "Do you know any trans people? Do you know any lesbians? Do you know any gay people?" Get to know them, talk to them, because they'll throw the, "Well, I have friends who are gay." That's bullshit. If you are supporting these politicians and preachers who are pushing this anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ agenda, then you don't have gay friends. You just know some gay people. And so talk to somebody, ask them how this stuff impacts them. What does it do for them when they hear these things, when they hear Greg Abbott is going to arrest parents for wanting to give their trans kids medical treatment? What does that do to a person that you know? And so I think talking and listening, and that's part of wokeness, is being willing to hear another viewpoint.
Yeah, and that would elicit empathy, that would build friendships, that would unify. And that's why I do this show, is because to get the word out there, to have these conversations in order to educate people who won't read, to educate people because they follow me or you guys or something to that effect, to try and make the world a truly more loving place. And being woke is the path to doing so, regardless what other people say. Curtis, you want me to unmute you? I'm kind of liking this power, by the way. I'm afraid he's going to say when he comes on.
Same.
Oh, did I mute you again?
You said.
Did I mute you?
Yeah, it's the same thing. The same thing you said about people's reaction to gays and lesbians and transsexuals can be applied to race, because people say, "Well, I have black friends and I work with black people." I'm not racist. No, you're not racist until your daughter brings home a black guy that she's dating. Then it all comes out. Then it all comes out. Just because you know black people, doesn't mean you're racist. And like I said, it all comes out because I've been there. I've been that black guy that goes to the white girl's house as her date, and I've seen how the family reacts and the looks I get, and that whole situation. So, and now you can mute me, power woman.
I want to piggyback on what Curtis said about with race, about the black friends and black, and even add black family members to it or whatever. But a lot of white people say, "I have black friends," but yeah, you have black friends, but are they having the same conversation with you as they having with their black friends? Because I'm telling you, the conversation is different from my white friends to my black friends. Totally different. So
now, so I would assume that is because your white friends don't actually ask. No, is that a safe assumption? Because you wouldn't hold anything back if they said, "Hey, teach me, show me, what am I missing?" Right?
Right. So they won't ask, but when something kind of like ignorant coming out of their mouths, that's when they start learning, and I start straightening them out, and they're like, "Oh, yeah."
So. Well, you got a lot of applause today for straightening me out. So there you go. It's Well, we are already at the top of the show. This went really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Curtis.
I'm going to go ahead and unmute Curtis.
I know he has something to say before I close it out.
Say something. I know he has something to say before I
No, I am glad that we were able to get together and have this conversation. I think we expand on it because there are a lot of things that we didn't get to cover today. So asking for more time for the four of us to continue to discuss.
Definitely. I'm going to mute you again, and I'm actually going to do a sign off because it's just bad.
Definitely. I'm good.
Okay, Cami, where can people, what are your final words and where can people find you, Cami?
So I have a group called Critical Race Theory. Basically, just being is more a group about bringing the awareness of injustices going on around the Black community, the LGBTQ, the gay community, basically marginalized community. Also, what's going on in the world and reality. Right now, I'm posting about voting, especially in Georgia.
Yeah.
Because, we have a Senate that's 50-50 right now. So, and so you can find me at Cami Back on Facebook or whatever, stuff like that. It's a decent group, especially because we sometimes post books and stuff like that. Some people want to know what books they could read about critical race theory, which is probably not a book out there unless you go into college and you're taking a law class, because that's basically what that theory is taught in anyway. But basically just knowledge of what's going on with, just the world and what's going on in the Black community and stuff like that.
Just to put it out there, that's her group. So you can go on Facebook and find her there. It is a great group. That's where I found Cami. So I was able
and do
to
not post conspiracy theories on there, because I will block you.
We open the show with "You don't like conspiracy theories." We put that warning out there. Okay, Curtis, do you want to say goodbye? Or is that enough? Can you hear me? Okay. Bill, where can people, any final words, and where can people find you?
My website is billprickett.com. You can find my where to link to my Amazon page to buy any of my books. I write novels, but they are some of them are set in history. My first one was set in Birmingham, Alabama in the mid 70s, when there was a lot of racial violence going on. So they do have historical context, but they are fiction. Of course, nothing in it is real. None of the people are real. So you can find them there. I have a blog there as well called Brain Bubbles, and it's just whatever's bubbling up in my head at the time. It's TV, movies, race, religion, just a whole bunch of things. And I wrote recently about the concept of woke. So you can find me at billprickett.com, and it'll also direct you to my Facebook page if you're interested in seeing some of my randomness.
Any final words?
No, I posted a blog where I called the insult, the woke insult. I call it the Wile E. Coyote of insults, because we know how Wile E. Coyote would try to destroy the Roadrunner. It always backfire on him, and that's why I see when somebody insults you by calling you woke, destroy. It says more about them than it does about you, and it just blows back on them. It says that they're not compassionate, not caring.
What was his saying as I was a kid? I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever bounces off of me sticks to you, or something like that. Yeah.
Rubber glue. Yes.
Yeah. We need some of that back. Well, thank you all for being here. It was a fabulous show, and you're right, not long enough. We've got more to cover, so we will definitely be doing a part 2, and we will have Curtis's tech fix, so it'd be brilliant to hear his wise voice. I'm going to send you all backstage. Anything else before I put you backstage? Cami, you look like you were going to say something?
No, I got to get ready for my sleep study tomorrow.
Okay, you do that. Rest well. I'm going to send you all backstage and close out the show. Thank you so very much.
Bye.
I hope you guys got something out of this. Again, I cover tough topics because of people who don't want to read. A lot of my bestest, dearest friends hate books. Other sets and dearest friends love books. But I wanted to put this out there so you can all know what people mean when they're saying this, to not have the fear behind it, to not have the revenge, the maligning of such a word. And again, no one should say, we want you to be asleep. That's just all bad. Knowledge is power, and that's what I wanted to give you tonight. I hope you did. Share in the comments what you think woke is. Tell me what you, in your definition, what it is. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of them. Hit like, subscribe. I will see you next week. Mwah. Walk in love. Oh, I can't even turn it off now.